Chapter 26. In place of Amaziah, the people of Judah made his son Uzziah king. He was 16 years old when he became king. After his father's death, Uzziah reconquered and rebuilt the city of Elath. Uzziah became king at the age of 16, and he ruled for 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jechaliah, and she was from Jerusalem. Following the example of his father, Uzziah did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. As long as Zechariah lived, Uzziah sought God faithfully, for Zechariah instructed him in the fear of the Lord. During that time, God blessed him. Uzziah went to war against the Philistines and tore down the walls of Gath, Jabneh, and Ashdod. Then he built fortified cities near Ashdod and in other areas of Philistine territory. God helped him defeat the Philistines, the Arabs who lived in Gerbel, and the Munites. His fame spread as far as Egypt, for he became very powerful, and even the Ammonites paid him tribute. To strengthen the defenses of Jerusalem, Uzziah built towers at the corner gate, the valley gate, and at the corner of the wall. He also built watchtowers in the countryside and dug many wells, for he had much livestock in the lowlands and on the highlands of Judah. He also had farmers and vine dressers in the hill country and fertile lands, for he loved the soil. Uzziah had an army ready for battle. It's organized into divisions according to the lists made by Jeiel, the secretary, and Maaseiah, the officer, under the direction of Hananiah, one of the king's commanders. The army was led by 2,600 family heads, all brave and capable warriors. They commanded a powerful army of 307,500 trained soldiers who fought for the king against his enemies. Uzziah provided the entire army with shields, spears, helmets, coats of armor, bows, and slings for shooting stones. In Jerusalem, his engineers invented machines designed to be used on the towers and at the corners of the walls to shoot arrows and hurl large stones. His fame spread far and wide, for he was marvelously helped until he became strong. But when Uzziah became powerful, his pride led to his downfall. He was unfaithful to the Lord his God, for he entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. The high priest Azariah and 80 other courageous priests of the Lord followed him in and confronted him, saying, "O king, it is not right for you to burn incense to the Lord. That is the duty of the priests, the descendants of Aaron, who have been consecrated to burn incense. Leave the sanctuary, for you have been unfaithful, and you will not be honored by the Lord God." Uzziah was holding a censer to burn incense, became furious with the priests. While he was raging at them in the temple before the altar of incense, leprosy broke out on his forehead. When Azariah the high priest and all the priests saw the leprosy on his forehead, they hurried him out of the temple. Indeed, he himself was eager to leave, because the Lord had afflicted him. King Uzziah had leprosy until the day he died, because he was a leper. He lived in a separate house and was excluded from the temple of the Lord. His son Jotham was in charge of the palace and governed the people of the land. The other events of Uzziah's reign, from beginning to end, were recorded by the prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz. Uzziah died and was buried in the royal cemetery in Jerusalem, but not in the royal tombs, because he had leprosy. And his son Jotham succeeded him as king. Chapter 27. Jotham was 25 years old when he became king of Judah, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. Jotham did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Uzziah had done. However, he did not enter the temple of the Lord to burn incense, but the people still continued in their corrupt practices. It was Jotham who built the upper gate of the temple of the Lord. He also did extensive work on the wall of Aphel. He built cities in the hill country of Judah, and fortresses and watchtowers in the forests. He went to war against the king of the Ammonites and defeated them. That year, the Ammonites paid him 3.5 tons of silver, 10,000 measures of wheat, and 10,000 measures of barley. The Ammonites brought him the same tribute also in the 2nd and 3rd years. Jotham grew powerful because he walked steadfastly before the Lord his God. The other events of Jotham's reign, including all his wars and his accomplishments, are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. Jotham died and was buried in the city of David, and his son Ahaz succeeded him as king. Chapter 28. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king of Judah, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. Unlike his ancestor King David, he did not do what was right in the sight of the Lord his God. Instead, he followed the example of the kings of Israel. He made metal images for the worship of Baal and burned incense in the valley of Ben Hinnom. He even sacrificed his own sons in the fire, following the detestable practices of the nations the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. Ahaz offered sacrifices and burned incense on the high places, on the hills, and under every green tree. Therefore, the Lord his God handed him over to the king of Aram. The Arameans defeated him and took many of his people as captives to Damascus. He was also defeated by the king of Israel, who inflicted heavy casualties on him. In one single day, Pekah, son of Remaliah, killed 120,000 valiant soldiers from Judah, because they had forsaken the Lord, the God of their ancestors. Zichri, a mighty warrior of Ephraim, killed Maaseiah, the king's son, Azrikam, the officer in charge of the palace, and Elkanah, the second to the king. The Israelites took as captives 200,000 of their relatives' women, sons, and daughters, and also seized a large amount of plunder, which they carried back to Samaria. But a prophet of the Lord named Oded was there in Samaria, and he went out to meet the army when it returned. He said to them, "Because the Lord, the God of your ancestors, was angry with Judah, he gave them into your hands. But you have slaughtered them in a rage that reaches to heaven. You intend to make the men and women of Judah and Jerusalem your slaves. But are you not also guilty of sins against the Lord your God? Now listen to me. Send back your fellow Israelites you have taken as prisoners. For the Lord's fierce anger rests upon you." Then some of the leaders of Ephraim, Azariah son of Johanan, Berechiah son of Meshelmouth, Jehiskiah son of Shallum, and Amasa son of Hadlai objected to what was happening. They said, "Do not bring those captives here. You have already sinned against the Lord, and now you want to add to our guilt and increase our sin. For our guilt is already great, and his fierce anger rests on Israel." So the soldiers released the captives and the plunder in the presence of the officials and all the people. The men mentioned by name took the captives, and from the plunder they clothed all who were naked. They provided them with clothes and sandals, gave them food and drink, and anointed them. Those who were weak they put on donkeys. They took all the captives back to their own people in Jericho, the city of palms, and returned to Samaria. At that time, King Ahaz sent to the king of Assyria for help, because the Edomites had again come and attacked Judah and carried away captives. The Philistines had also raided the towns in the foothills and in the Negev of Judah, capturing Beth Shemesh, Aijalon, Gederoth, Sokoh, Timnah, and Gimzo, with their surrounding villages, and they settled there. The Lord humbled Judah because of King Ahaz of Israel, for he had promoted wickedness in Judah and had been utterly unfaithful to the Lord. Then Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, came to him, but he gave him trouble instead of help. Ahaz took some of the treasures from the temple of the Lord, from the royal palace, and from the officials, and gave them to the king of Assyria, but it did him no good. In his time of trouble, King Ahaz became even more unfaithful to the Lord. He offered sacrifices to the gods of Damascus, who had defeated him, for he thought, "Since the gods of the kings of Aram have helped them, I will sacrifice to them so they will help me." But they were his downfall, and the downfall of all Israel. Ahaz gathered together the furnishings of the temple of God and cut them to pieces. He shut the doors of the Lord's temple and set up altars at every street corner in Jerusalem. In every town in Judah, he built high places to burn incense to other gods and arouse the anger of the Lord, the God of his ancestors. The other events of his reign and all his ways, from beginning to end, are written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. Ahaz rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of Jerusalem, but not in the tombs of the kings of Israel. And Hezekiah his son succeeded him as king. Chapter 29. Hezekiah was 25 years old when he became king of Judah, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Abijah, the daughter of Zechariah. Hezekiah did what was right in the sight of the Lord, just as his ancestor David had done. In the first month of his reign, Hezekiah opened the doors of the temple of the Lord and repaired them. He assembled the priests and the Levites in the square on the east side and said to them, "Listen to me, you Levites. Purify yourselves now and purify the temple of the Lord, the God of your ancestors. Remove everything that is defiled from the holy place. Our ancestors were unfaithful. They did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord our God and abandoned him. They turned their faces away from his dwelling place and turned their backs on him. They also shut the doors of the temple, put out the lamps, and stopped burning incense and presenting burnt offerings to the God of Israel at the altar in his sanctuary. Therefore, the Lord's anger has fallen on Judah and Jerusalem. He has made them an object of dread, horror, and scorn, as you can see with your own eyes. That is why our fathers have fallen by the sword, and why our sons, daughters, and wives are in captivity. Now I intend to make a covenant with the Lord, the God of Israel, so that his fierce anger will turn away from us. My sons, do not be negligent now, for the Lord has chosen you to stand before him, to serve him, to minister before him, and to burn incense. The following Levites then came forward. From the Kohathites, Manath, son of Amasai, and Joel, son of Azariah. From the Merarites, Kish, son of Abdi, and Azariah, son of Jahalo. The Gershonites, Joah, son of Zimmah, and Eden, son of Joah. From the descendants of Elisaphan, Shimri and Jeiel. From the descendants of Asaph, Zechariah and Mattaniah. From the descendants of Heman, Jeiel and Shimei. And from the descendants of Jeduthun, Shemaiah and Uzziel. They gathered their fellow Levites, consecrated themselves, and went in to purify the temple of the Lord, as the king had ordered, following the word of the Lord. The priests went into the inner part of the temple to purify it, and brought out to the courtyard everything unclean that they found in the temple of thee. Lord, the Levites took it out to the Kidron Valley. They began the consecration on the first day of the first month, and reached the portico of the temple by the 8th day. They consecrated the temple of the Lord for 8 more days, and finished on the 16th day of the first month. Then they went in to King Hezekiah and reported, "We have purified the entire temple of the Lord, the altar of burnt offering with all its utensils, not the table for setting out the consecrated bread with all its articles. We have also recovered all the articles that King Ahaz in his unfaithfulness removed during his reign. We have consecrated them, and they are now in front of the altar of the Lord." Early the next morning, King Hezekiah gathered the city officials and went up to the temple of the Lord. They brought 7 bulls, 7 rams, 7 lambs, and 7 male goats as a sin offering for the kingdom, for the sanctuary, for Judah. The king commanded the priests, the descendants of Aaron, to offer these on the altar of the Lord. The priests slaughtered the bulls and sprinkled their blood on the altar. They did the same with the rams and the lambs. Then they brought the male goats for the sin offering before the king and the assembly, who laid their hands on them. The priests slaughtered the goats and presented their blood on the altar as a sin offering to make atonement for all Israel. For the king had ordered that the burnt offering and the sin offering should be made for all Israel. Hezekiah stationed the Levites in the temple of the Lord with cymbals, harps, and lyres, according to the directions given by David, Gad, the king's seer, and the prophet Nathan. This was the command of the Lord through his prophets. The Levites stood with the instruments of David, and the priests with the trumpets. Hezekiah gave the order to sacrifice the burnt offering on the altar. As the offering began, singing to the Lord began also, accompanied by trumpets and the instruments of David, king of Israel. The whole assembly bowed in worship, while the singers sang and the trumpeters played, until the offering was completed. When the offerings were finished, the king and everyone present knelt down and worshipped. King Hezekiah and his officials then ordered the Levites to praise the Lord with the words of David and of Asaph the seer. They sang praises with gladness and bowed down and worshipped. Then Hezekiah said, "You have now dedicated yourselves to the Lord. Come and bring sacrifices and thank offerings to the temple of the Lord." So the assembly brought sacrifices and thank offerings, and all whose hearts were willing brought burnt offerings. The number of burnt offerings the assembly brought was 70 bulls, 100 rams, and 200 male lambs, all of them as burnt offerings to the Lord. The animals consecrated as sacrifices amounted to 600 bulls and 3,000 sheep and goats. The priests, however, were too few to skin all the burnt offerings, so their relatives the Levites helped them until the task was finished, and until more priests had consecrated themselves, for the Levites had been more conscientious in purifying themselves than the priests had been. There were also burnt offerings in abundance, together with the fat of the fellowship offerings and the drink offerings that accompanied the burnt offerings. So the service of the temple of the Lord was re-established. Hezekiah and all the people rejoiced at what God had brought about for his people, because it had been done so quickly.